battlecruiser Hood.
The signal comes by wireless and has spotted the planes his men.
So, did you find the boat?
Good morning. Welcome to Morning Call. I'm Fab from Hamburg, and yes, I'm back. I have not been arrested. I've not been forced to flee into an embassy. I'm back. I got terribly sick with man flu. It was really bad. So I was out of commission for a few days, and my voice actually just returned a few days ago. So yeah, but I'm back. Welcome to Morning Call. I'll get you some tech news in a minute. Yeah, sorry for that again. It was really bad. I wasn't able to go to TwitchCon and see the Hoff, so that was a major loss on my part. Yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out how this all works here. Before we start, I would like to thank Minwo, Galtaran, and Eric Wedner, who subscribed to the channel. Thank you very much. And Budjo, Vohan J, I think that's Joe and V, the other way. I don't know. Who followed. So thank you. And Anonymous with the 420 weed donation, I guess. Thanks for that. I will endeavor to bring you this show once again every weekday, starting today. I took yesterday. I was okay yesterday. I just took that off because it was Easter anyway, and I had a lot to do. I worked through all of Easter because I was sick, and then I had to catch up. Anyway, yes, I started the show there for everybody who's watching the live stream with a video that Sabaton released yesterday, commemorating with a new song commemorating the Bismarck. Topic close to my heart, and they're continuing their collaboration with Wargaming. Good morning, Reamed. Hello, and yeah, and World of Warships, and had an amazing video with like the CGI is all done by Wargaming with their World of Warships models, and pretty amazing. But let's get you into the real tech news. I guess that's probably what you're here for. And there's a lot of stuff happened, so I'm not catching up, but still I had to today. There was so many news I looked through this morning from Easter that I had to kind of select the most important stuff. So the biggest story right now certainly is that Samsung has delayed its Galaxy Fold mobile phone indefinitely. That is the foldable screen phone. It was supposed to be the first phone with the foldable screen. It was to come out pretty soon, cost $2,000, but apparently they had lots of problems already with like reviewer devices. The Verge are saying theirs died after 2 days of use, pretty bad, and so apparently stuff gets into the hinge for the folding screen and then destroys the display. Also, some displays were apparently destroyed or damaged when reviewers pulled off a foil on the display that looks like those like screen protector foils you get off from phones when they're new. You know, when you get them out of the package, there's always like this thing you need to pull off. And so they thought, oh, there's this thing, and pulled that off, and apparently that just is this integral part of the phone, which which wasn't good. And that also destroyed the phone. And Samsung is not saying when they're gonna start shipping these. The pre-order customers, they're saying they do. If you pre-order it, you keep your place in line, and whenever they release it, you'll just get it. But this all sounds like lots of reviewers apparently had problems with this, and they didn't write stories about this, interestingly, and waited apparently for Samsung to get back to them. And now Samsung has said this. I don't know if you pre-ordered this, if you would want to, at this point, want to get this phone. I don't know. Obviously they need to completely redesign it, but it doesn't inspire much confidence in your $2,000 investment there. Yeah. So more problems experienced by an Elon Musk company. Once again, SpaceX had when they were testing a rocket with their Crew Dragon capsule, so the thing they want to take up to the ISS, so that the Americans finally have an alternative to the Soyuz, I guess. That is currently the only manned space vehicle that brings all astronauts to and back from the ISS. Now, this SpaceX Crew Dragon exploded during I think they did a rocket test. There's a picture here from Twitter from the beaches in Florida. Man, they're swimming there now. Jesus Christ. I mean, it's warm. It's completely warm here. It's been sunny for days and really warm, and I couldn't really get out because I was sick, so that's bad. But look at that. They're just in the waves, and you can see the clouds of the explosion. Orange smoke looks healthy, says Reem. Yes, the rocket fuel is very, very, very unhealthy and extremely explosive, as NASA has discovered in earlier rocket explosions and space shuttle accidents and stuff like this. Apparently, the explosion was so big that it showed up on radar, but not really much known now why this has happened. SpaceX and NASA are investigating, but that'll set things back for a bit. Where's the damn? Oh God, I'm just realizing in saying this that I am missing a story that I thought I'd put in earlier, but apparently didn't. So why isn't that here? So I'm just quickly behind the scenes here, finding the story I wanted to report on and slotting that extremely seamlessly back into the show, because it would be a nice segue from SpaceX having problems. Aerospace industry. There's also more stories of more news of Boeing having problems. So in the wake of the 737 MAX problems, the New York Times has a very long, very interesting, exclusive story about problems at the 787 Dreamliner plant in South Carolina, where apparently workers have reported for years that there are problems, mostly with debris like metal shavings and tools left inside of airplanes, and like in the spaces between the fuselage and the hull, or like under the deck stuff. Sometimes where like gears are for the rudder, so they could presumably shake loose in flight, and jam gears or destroy cabling. Stuff like that. Apparently the FAA has investigated this and knows about this. So another case of like maybe the FAA and Boeing just being too close together there. And the New York Times reporting on a number of employees who say they were in quality control or managers, and they reported these incidents to superiors, and then were rebuffed, told that they should be more creative and not call attention to these things and fix the problems, and or not worry about these quality issues. And then when they kept flagging them, they said they were let go and fired. Boeing is in most cases denying this, but the New York Times has assembled here a report with many employees of all different levels in this South Carolina factory. It's in North Charleston, saying that there are massive problems. So it looks mostly like this factory, which was built when the 787 Dreamliner was also a big hit, like the 737 MAX, and you might remember it early on had problems where the fleet had to be grounded because of battery fire on I think was it a Japan Airlines jet or something like that, and but it's sold really well. It sold so well that Boeing couldn't keep up with their with the demand from their main factory in the Seattle area, so they created this second factory in North Charleston. You know, these are airplane factories, so they're not like, can't just build them. They have like landing strips and stuff like that. Huge investment. And apparently they went, or it's kind of alleged in this New York Times article that they went to North Carolina because it's their South Carolina, sorry. I keep saying North Carolina because of North Charleston. Because there's a very few unionized employees down there. And apparently they were looking to save costs that way. But then subsequently had the problem that whereas in Seattle they had nurtured kind of like Airbus this here in Hamburg, you know, they've been here for years, for decades, and they've nurtured this aerospace engineer community. You know, they have connections to, you know, technical universities where you learn this stuff, and you know they have a hiring program, and they, you know, you need very skilled employees to build these planes, and you can't just get them off the street. So they seem to have a problem recruiting people in South Carolina, which these people that have been let go and have filed complaints, the FAA has multiple whistleblower complaints also lodged. They say, you know, they're kind of saying that's a bit of a problem. You know, here's a picture of that factory, by the way. You see how huge it is. The Airbus one over here in Hamburg is as big as, like, it has its own landing strip, of course, and, you know, for test flights and stuff like that, delivery flights, and just a massive factory. Yeah, and apparently there's lots of, like, you know, I mean, minor quality control issues were like decorative stuff were held together by like chewing gum and stuff, but then also like really bad problems with tools and stuff being left in the airplanes. And American Airlines, for example, saying that they had flagged this earlier with Boeing, and are very confident in the planes in the Dreamliners they have in their fleet, but basically just because it sounds like they have their own quality assurance program, and they test every plane they get from Boeing. And so the New York Times quotes like this guy who worked for American Airlines, is now retired, who was checking out these planes when they got them fresh off the factory, and would find all these kind of tools and stuff in everywhere in the plane, and would just collect them in Ziploc bags, and then go to the factory and show the Boeing guys like, this is the shit you leave in the plane. In one case, apparently there was a bolt not screwed in properly in one of the engines, which already had a test flight from Boeing. So really serious allegations and problems here, and major problems for Boeing. Also, the New York Times here mentioning that in the wake of the 737 MAX problems, Boeing apparently told its employees it's a very difficult time for the company right now, you know, especially like in South Charleston, you know, in South Carolina, messing up these place names, you know, get your act together. We can't like have like all these problems now with the Dreamliner when we already have problems with 737. And or, you know, according to the New York Times story, they knew of these problems because, you know, of course they log like their tools, and there are lots of tools like disappearing, which are presumably either stolen by employees, which is kind of less likely because you don't need these tools at home, I guess, or just like left lying around in the planes. One of the managers was saying there were like defective parts kept disappearing. So he reckons they built them into the planes, which they shouldn't have because they were, taken out of the production process because they were damaged. So more problems for Boeing, it seems. Not good. Marcus Hutchins, the UK security researcher, who is mostly famous for having basically disabled WannaCry, which caused lots of trouble in Germany, for one thing. And he basically disabled the command and figured out how the command and control mechanism worked and disabled it. He was in the US for DEF CON, Black Hat at DEF CON, and got picked up by US police, confronted with charges of having had created banking malware in the past. And it looks like they've broken him now, and he's entered a plea bargain. So he's pled guilty to having created banking Trojans in the past. The sentence carries that he's, that they charged him with 2 counts, maximum penalty of 5 years and a $250,000 fine. So, and a year of probation. So he might go to jail. He's probably not getting 5 years because, the whole point of a plea bargain is that you admit to what you've done and then you get less time in jail. But it would be pretty bad if he got bailed. Not because of the WannaCry thing, but basically, as lots of security researchers have pointed out on Twitter, there basically half of the security industry or more has like a shady past. There are a lot of people who were like gray hats or black hats before they went white and went working for a security company. So to having picked him up, and then, he's been in the US since 2017, since they picked him up. And now to be putting him in jail would be pretty bad when, this is, I'm not advocating for not, if somebody does something illegal or something illegal, I'm not saying they shouldn't prosecute people generally, but it's a case by case basis. And as the Register rightly points out in the story in the end here, in the last paragraph, after all, plenty of today's cybersecurity engineers and researchers have toyed with writing malware even for research purposes. Thus, a stretch behind bars would be a very high sentence for an offense committed when he was a teen. Lots of these people in this industry only have the experience they have because they, were on the other side at some point, or at least toyed with, figuring out how to write malware. So I don't know. I guess definitely bad for Hutchins, but it's just like it's another one of these shot across the bows for security researchers. I think I reported on this earlier because he didn't really, he was assuming UK. One of the problems was he was in the US and he was being held and investigated, and he was kind of assuming UK legal practices and basically got himself in hot water because he wasn't understanding the American laws. Not good in any case. Apple, in another story I've reported on before, Apple has now finally settled their patent quarrel with Qualcomm. We don't know how much money Apple is paying Qualcomm, but analysts are saying probably $5 to $6 billion. And this was the patent dispute where you'd seen in Germany, you'd seen iPhones being not being able to be sold, and Apple had to put things in their store. We can't sell these phones, and stuff like that. So that's at least that's done now though. And that's probably just peanuts. Like, 6 billion is probably just peanuts for Apple. I was talking about unionizing in the Boeing case. More unionizing here. News about unionizing. NPN, the Node package manager, so that thing pretty much anybody uses these days on the web. It's basically the package repository for Node.js. The company running that, NPM Incorporated, apparently firing people because they were trying to unionize, which of course in Silicon Valley traditionally is not a common thing for the workers to be unionized. Same thing pretty much in the video game industry, where there are rumblings these days about unions, and of course the companies don't like this. Yeah, this is pretty grim. So there's a report on the Register on this. I'm not going to go into the deep, but that's basically it. I mean, if you want more details, you can get that at the Register. I'm just hurrying up a bit here because the show's been going on for quite a long time. Other news, Scientific Linux is dead. Fermilab is saying they are not developing Scientific Linux 8. They will use CentOS 8. They don't see a use, don't really see a reason to keep maintaining their own distribution. So in case you're using Scientific Linux, just a heads up. Fermilab currently working on something called Dune, the Deep Underground Neutrino Experiment. I just love that they called it Dune. I haven't had time to look through this site. I just recently heard about this. I really want to know if they managed to shoehorn in some sandworm references there. Golem is reporting that a researcher has been able to break into the WhatsApp alternative of the French government, basically registering by, you have to give an email address which needs to be a valid French government email address, I guess, to sign up. And he just appended the official email address of the French president, présidence@élysée.fr, to his own address, and then could sign up and read stuff. The French government messenger in question is based on the Matrix project, matrix.org, which have now fixed this problem. At first, they were kind of like, oh, no, it's a problem with the French installation, but then this researcher was like, no, it's like your system, and they're like, oh shit, you're right. And they have fixed this now. Matrix.org is having problems. Recently, their servers were hacked. I don't think it has anything to do with this story, but just wanted to mention that. They were in the news before for them. Their servers basically getting owned. Bit of gaming news here. At the end, as usual. So the Epic Games is running the Fortnite World Cup. It's coming up. The qualifiers are running right now. There's lots of money on the line. You get $30 million if you win the finals, and $1 million each for each of the 10 weeks of qualifiers. And the qualifiers have been running now, and they have banned over 200 cheaters. No, actually 1,200 cheaters, including more than 200 potential prize winners or people that won prizes that they had to give back because they were cheating. I guess not surprising with so much money on the line, but 1,163 cheaters. I mean, this is all kinds of stuff. That it wasn't only like, most of it wasn't like using cheat programs. A lot of stuff was like teaming, illegally teaming in non-team matches. There were people so teaming in solo queue. One account was banned for intentionally disconnecting from a game as not to give points to a competitor. People circumventing region locks to compete in multiple regions. Of course, also like cheat software. Like one of them used it during the semifinals. That account has been banned for life. So I guess he'll be making another account then. And before I go, just one more story, a little bit of a what the fuck story I caught yesterday. Reporting on Deutschlandfunk, German national radio station. They're reporting on the radiation dangers of 5G, which caught my attention because these stories, they're a pet peeve of mine. They keep popping up once in a while. So basically, what is alleged here is that non-ionizing radiation, i.e. radiation from mobile phones, like, high frequency EM radiation, microwave radiation basically also, would cause cancer. I mean, we know that ionizing radiation, alpha, beta, gamma, X-rays, they do definitely cause cancer. But these stories are a pet peeve of mine because they keep cropping up and often written by people who don't know what they're talking about. And there's lots of panic in the air. And I'm kind of interested in this topic, and I've been keeping up on the site on research, and basically there is no there isn't a clear there's the idea that this kind of radiation would cause cancer, but there's no clear scientific explanation of how that would happen. We know it would how it happens with ionizing radiation, but it's not clear how that would happen with non-ionizing radiation. What is clear is that EM, non-ionizing radiation has an effect on the mostly on the metabolism. I mean, it's magnetic fields. You can, even shifts in the Earth, magnetic fields have effects in living beings that you can track. It's just not clear how that would cause cancer. But aside from that, there's always studies being done because of mobile phones. You're putting them close to your head. You don't want to get a brain tumor. That's understandable. And basically, the gist in the story at Deutschlandfunk is that there is a problem, and there is probably a danger with cancer connected to these to this kind of radiation, and that it's been kept quiet by, I guess, alleged in the story, a lobby or people that don't want reporting on this. Now, I find this interesting because I'm kind of semi-kept up with the research, and I'm like, okay, so is there new evidence that would suggest that there is a problem here, which this story kind of makes out. It then quotes the Bundesamt für Strahlenschutz, so the German Federal Office for Radiation Protection, who allegedly has said that there is no danger, as you would expect from the research, and then but kind of alleges that then they say, well, there might be danger. So what they're quoting is a study that's called Interphone that's been done in 13 countries over, I guess, almost 20 years. It started in the year 2000. So if you Google this and you find the page of the Bundesamt für Strahlenschutz, you find their page on this. And then I did what apparently the writer of this story hasn't done, which was some basic research. Because interestingly, they this very helpfully this BFS site lists the studies, and you can actually look them up on PubMed, which I did. So I don't have full text, I don't have subscriptions to Oxford Academic or Elsevier, obviously. I mean, I could look them up in other ways, Sci-Hub, but I don't even have to do that because, in the conclusions, and this is from the authors of the studies, I'm just going to read the two conclusions of the two papers linked there. So the first paper is Brain Tumor Risk in Relation to Mobile Phone Use, Results of the Interphone International Case Control Study in International Journal of Epidemiology. from 2012. Authors. Who wrote this? Anyway. Where's the author? I want to credit the damn author. Come on, PubMed. I'm not used enough. I'm not good enough. So with PubMed, if I click on that, does it tell me the author? Come on. By who wrote this study? Why doesn't it? I guess it just says the Interphone Study Group. Anyway, quoting from the conclusions in this paper, overall, no increase in risk of glioma or meningioma was observed with use of mobile phones. There were suggestions of an increased risk of glioma at the highest exposure levels. I guess this is what the story is kind of picking up. But then it says, but biases and error prevent a causal interpretation. The possible effects of long-term heavy use of mobile phones require further investigation. So the scientists who did this are basically saying, we don't know. Need to further investigate. The next study is called Acoustic Neuroma Risk in Relation to Mobile Phone Telephone Use, results of the Interphone International Case Control Study in Cancer Epidemiology. Conclusions here. There was no increase in risk of acoustic neuroma with ever regular use of mobile phone or for users who began regular use 10 years or more before the reference date. Elevated odds ratios observed at the highest level of cumulative call time could be due to chance, reporting bias, or casual effect. As acoustic neuroma is usually a slowly growing tumor, this is the kicker, the interval between introduction of mobile phones and occurrence of the tumor might have been too short to observe an effect, if there is one. So they're basically saying, we haven't had enough time since mobile phones were introduced to get enough data because these tumors are growing so slowly. Yes, so I would just like to point out once again, these studies are mostly public. Like even, you can at least as a journalist, even if you don't have subscriptions, you don't know what PSYOP is, you can at least get, the abstract of the paper. And if they're so clearly in the abstract state that there is obviously nothing, no conclusion that this kind of radiation causes cancer, then maybe it doesn't. I find it also very interesting that, they're talking about, like in this article, they talk about other studies, and doctors are saying, yeah, there's a problem, and that they had noticed that people who had brain tumors had gotten them on the side of the head where they used their mobile phone. But I would like to see that data because brain tumors are not a very common occurrence, and I couldn't imagine a story a study where they had I don't know, more than 20 cases maybe. That would be a lot. And, to say, to infer from that statistical significance because the brain tumors on one side of the head with so few cases is... So I'm not saying this risk doesn't exist, but I'm saying I want to see... I'm interested in this, and I want to see results. I just object to these stories where my colleagues in the press are basically too fucking slack to read a few papers and just do some basic research on the topic they're writing about. Anyway, that's it for me today. That was your obligatory rant about how the press is shit. So as you can tell, Morning Call is fully back. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing to this channel, to the podcast. Thanks for your nice words on Twitter and on other social media. I keep doing this, and even when I go down with man flu once in a while. I'll always be back. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow. Undoubtedly another very fine day. I have to do some more work now and have to do some research and write some stories that are based on research. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, have a nice day, and just it's not a tumor. It's not a tumor.